Good evening and welcome to our pre-launch news conference for the SpaceX CRS-1 mission set to launch from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station tomorrow at 8:35 p.m. It's going to be an exciting start to commercial spaceflight. It's the first of 12 missions that SpaceX will be delivering cargo to the International Space Station and returning it. And it's very exciting for SpaceX, for NASA, for the Kennedy Space Center, and for the entire Space Coast. And we have a panel ready to talk all about the mission. I'd like to introduce them as we begin. To my left is Kennedy Space Center Director Bob Cabana. Bob commanded Space Shuttle Endeavour on the first space station assembly mission in 1998. He and his crew delivered the first American module, Unity, and docked it with the Russian Zarya module. And now he has a new role. He is commanding the Kennedy Space Center and in charge as we transform to support commercial space business and create a multi-user spaceport for both government and commercial customers. To Bob's left, Sam Shamimi, Director, International Space Station Program from NASA headquarters in Washington. Sam is going to talk about the importance of this mission to the space station. It's a very important mission, and we look forward to getting it underway. To Sam's left, Mike Suffredini, NASA's program manager for the International Space Station, and he'll give us a status of the space station and an overview of the SpaceX CRS-1 mission. To Mike's left, Gwynne Shotwell. She oversees day-to-day operations for the SpaceX company, and she can't wait to tell us all about Falcon 9 and Dragon. And to her left is Mike McAleenan, Launch Weather Officer for the 45th Weather Squadron at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. He'll give us an update on tomorrow's weather forecast. And we'll begin with opening comments, and then we'll take your questions. Bob?
Thanks, Mike. Well, it's great to be here for the first commercial launch to the International Space Station. We've made great progress this last year transforming the Kennedy Space Center into a multi-user spaceport of the future, and it's key to have both commercial and government launches from the Cape. Our part with this mission is a little smaller than what we hope to have in the future, processing the payloads for it and late delivery of some of them, but it's a beginning. And if I look at where we were a year ago and the progress we've made now, it's just tremendous. From the end of the shuttle, we've moved forward. We are building the very first Orion multipurpose crew vehicle right now for a test flight in 2014 over in the ONC High Bay, a state-of-the-art processing facility over there, preparing for a launch on a Delta IV in 2014. We've transformed the Launch Control Center, one of the firing rooms, to support the future, not just a single rocket, but however we want to configure it. We've taken Pad B, the northernmost pad out at 39, and completely remodeled it. Continuing to work on the process out there, finishing up with the propellant distribution systems, state-of-the-art launch complex for the future, handling more than just NASA's heavy lift rocket, but capable of any rocket with a common interface to the pad to a mobile launcher. We've made great progress lately in High Bay 3 in the vehicle assembly building, pulling the platforms out of it that are unique to the shuttle as we modify that to support NASA's heavy lift rocket that's going to allow us to explore once again beyond our home planet. And from a commercial point of view, the Commercial Crew Program here at KSC, in partnership with the Johnson Space Center, has moved forward. We have 3 companies now under Space Act agreements under CCI-CAP, the Commercial Crew Integrated Capability Contract, Boeing, Sierra Nevada, and SpaceX with the Falcon 9 Dragon Rider. And we are moving forward to help enable commercial operations for crew to the International Space Station. In transforming the facilities that we have here, we've got Boeing with their CST-100 spacecraft moving into OPF Bay 3. We recently moved out of OPF Bay 1 and will soon be moving out of OPF Bay 2, hoping to bring more partners in there for the future. So I think overall, tremendous progress towards really becoming what was once science fiction, but a true multi-user spaceport with horizontal vertical launch landing capabilities utilizing the SLF, as well as the facilities that we have available from shuttle, along with this outstanding workforce that's available down here to help make that transition. So it's a good time, Mike.
Thank you, Bob. Sam.
Thanks. Tomorrow's SpaceX launch begins a new era for spaceflight and the International Space Station. Just over a year after the shuttle retirement, we're poised to start commercial cargo supply and return services to the space station. These flights are critical to the space station sustainment and to begin the full utilization of space station for research and technology development. Spaceflight is really hard, and I wanted to thank all the SpaceX teams and NASA teams that make this launch tomorrow possible. Thanks.
Mike?
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's good to be back. We're poised, as Sam said, for the launch of the SpaceX 1 flight. This is the first flight under the commercial contract for services, as was mentioned. And as you can imagine, we're excited to have the vehicle coming up to visit ISS and bring not only the cargo that it brings, but also bring back the capability to return a significant amount of cargo and research samples back home. And so on this flight, this first flight, we're carried about 1,000 pounds, up because of the other cargo flying up with us. This one will be unique in that the amount of cargo we bring home is more than the amount of cargo we bring up, so we actually bring back almost 2,000 pounds of cargo, much of that related to research, although we will use it to bring home some failed ORUs that we'd like to get repaired. And it's good to be able to have that capability back as well, because not only do you save some money, generally speaking, when you're able to repair ORUs and return them to orbit, but also you get to do the failure analysis that sometimes failures will elude you if you are not able to get the hardware back home to check it out. So we're utilizing this capability in full. I'll also say it's nice to have a U.S. indigenous capability, and one of the main reasons is the flexibility to get hardware to ISS. We had a small pump on the urine processor fail not too long ago. We installed our last spare on orbit into the urine processor assembly, and because of our desire, we had one planned to fly up on ATV-4, which doesn't fly till next spring. And so we contacted our SpaceX friends and said, we've got this fairly large ORU we'd like to fly, and working together to adjust a manifest, we were able to get that on this particular manifest, and it's coming to orbit. So when you have a launch vehicle that's in your country, it just makes it a lot easier, because of literally shipping and customs can kill you when you're trying to get overseas, and this really makes the process faster, allows us to react to anomalies in real time. So this capability is very important to the International Space Station. I expect us to utilize it to its fullest extent, and we're looking forward to this first flight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Gwen?
Well, Mike said it was good to be back. I'll say that it's actually great to be back here at the Cape, flying again. Very, very much excited about this first official commercial cargo resupply mission. The 2,000 plus men and women of SpaceX have been working very hard to make this mission go a little bit smoother than the prior. Wanted to thank our NASA partners as well. I think they would agree that this was smoother. We've really developed a great relationship, and this partnership has really been critical to the success of these missions. Also want to thank our Air Force partners, of course, FAA, who's licensing these missions, and then FCC as well, who's been helpful this go-round. So we are flying tomorrow evening. We're looking for an 8:35 p.m. liftoff. I can go through the timeline a bit as you guys would like, but it's a high-level overview. If we fly tomorrow night, we've got about 53 hours before we rendezvous and berth with the International Space Station. If the flight is delayed for any particular reason, likely weather, the opportunity on Monday is about the same to get to station. The opportunity on Tuesday is less. It's about a 30-hour rendezvous with the station. Once we do get to the station, we will be berthed by a pair of astronauts, Akihiko Hashida and Sunny Williams. The two of them will capture and berth us, and we'll be on station for on the order of 3 weeks, possibly a bit longer, depending on station traffic and station needs. So we are carrying a bit of science on this particular mission. As Mike mentions, we're taking about 1,000 pounds of cargo up. We're very excited. This is the first time that we're taking powered cargo up. We're taking up a glacier freezer, which has refrigerated science samples in it. This is also the first time that we're going to bring back a glacier as well. So we're quite excited about the missions both up and back. Wanted to talk very briefly about the differences between the last flight and this. The insertion orbit is slightly different. We went to a 325 kilometer circular orbit on the C2 mission. This one will be inserting Dragon into a 200 by 325 orbit. The Dragon is largely the same, although we are carrying the full cargo complement of cargo racks. So if you saw the video when they opened the hatch on the ISS before, all the cargo was around the edges. Now in this one, the center stack is actually included in this mission, and volume relatively full. Falcon 9 is largely the same as well. We did improve our flight termination system, so we're flying a slightly enhanced flight termination system. Other very minor differences. This is the first time we're flying our own domes as well on the tanks. So I do look forward to your questions and running through any details you'd like on the mission. Thanks very much, and again, it's great to be back.
Mike?
All right, well, let me start out by saying that the weather outside would be best characterized as unfavorable for launch, and that's been the case for the last several days here in Central Florida. We're hoping that this boundary continues to move south, and we're looking for opportunity. If we can go to the satellite picture, you can see that it's right on the edge of Central Florida, maybe along the I-4 corridor, gradually pushing to the south, and we are hopeful that it's going to continue moving south and looking good for launch time. Speaking of launch time, we can go to the first slide. Looking for, again, that boundary to just be moving through the area. We'll probably be dealing with some violations through the count, but by late in the evening for the window, looking for the clouds to be breaking up a little bit, 4,000-foot scattered conditions and a 10,000-foot deck out there. Winds will be light out of the northeast, and a 40% chance of violation, mostly a thick cloud violation or flight through precipitation. And basically what that means is there's a 60% chance of that mess on the satellite picture being to our south for launch time. If we were to move to a 24-hour delay for Columbus Day, conditions do improve, and we're looking for much less in the way of cloud cover and chances of precipitation. And still, it's a light easterly winds, but only a 20% chance of violation. There's a much better chance for that system to either continue moving to the south and better chance of being south of us, or just come and die and wash out as fronts do here in Florida. For a 40-hour delay onto Tuesday, again, a decent chance, only a 20% chance of violation. And with the second day or third day of easterly flow, we're looking for maybe a cumulus cloud violation versus a thick cloud. Same probability, but a different scenario. A lot of times with deep easterly flow, we get a little shower or two form up over the water, work its way in. It's a little early for that in the evening. Generally, it's a morning phenomena, so only a 20% chance of violation. So overall, we're hopeful this boundary will keep moving through, and this will be our last day of unfavorable weather for launch time. Thanks.
Okay, Mike, thank you. All right, we'll take questions. And here at the Kennedy Space Center News Center, we are glad to welcome some of our NASA social friends who are going to be reporting through social media on the event, joining our traditional news media. We would ask for you to please state your name and your affiliation and to whom you're addressing your question. And we'll start off with Marcia Dunn.
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press for Ms. Shotwell. Could you have put on more to go up because you're bringing so much back, and I'm not sure if it's just big volume, lightweight stuff going up that you're at 1,000 pounds. Why couldn't you have put 2,000 pounds on board, more food or whatever? And could you just sort of give a status if you're still hoping to go in December on yet the next one?
Let me take the second one first, so I don't forget it. The second SpaceX CRS mission is scheduled for January. We're shooting for a 2-week time frame starting around January 18th, 2-week window. As far as cargo up, I do understand that the cargo up we're taking is voluminous, not quite as dense as some of the cargo that we will be taking on successive missions. We are required, by the way, under this contract to fly 20 metric tons up to the International Space Station. And with the way the way it looks over the 12 flights, we'll be taking up and back about 60 metric tons.
James?
James Dean, Florida Today. Ms. Shotwell, so much talk last time about the history-making event of being the first private vehicle to visit the station, but can you contrast that with the moment we're at now, where this is the first, flight that counts, if you will, the first real operational contracted flight?
I'm not sure any of the engineering team, frankly, or myself, feels like this is substantially different than the last one, with the exception that we got there once. We demonstrated we could do it. So there might be a teeny bit of relaxation. Not a lot, though. We're a launch company. I'm excited every time we get to launch. So this is obviously a very exciting time to be back. We were very much looking forward to moving from that development phase of the Falcon 9 and the Dragon into the official operational phase. So that part is actually quite exciting.
Bill.
Bill Horowitz, CBS News, with one for Gwen and one for Mike Suffredini. But for Gwen, you mentioned that 20 metric tons is required by the contract. And this is a contract question. It's not a bad karma question or anything like that. But if one of the missions in that 12 fails to get there for whatever reason, is there a contractual, what happens? Do you have to refly it at your cost, or does the government eat that? Or I just don't understand how the contract works.
If there is a mission failure, we actually don't get fully paid for that particular mission. I don't necessarily want to go into the details on that, and it depends on what kind of failure occurs. Given the amount of the capacity that we have on the Falcon 9 and the Dragon flights, I don't believe there is any chance that we won't hit our 20 metric ton target.
And for Mike, can you give us a little update on ISS systems? I remember when you guys replaced the box here a couple of weeks back, there was another box that had gone down that you guys were deferring to a later date. Where does that stand? And I've seen some mention of some coolant issues on P6, and I was wondering where does that stand, and what are you going to do to resolve those? Thanks.
Sure. The system you're referring to before was the Power Channel 3A, and shortly after the SpaceX vehicle arrives, we're going to go ahead and do the troubleshooting. So we don't know what the cause of what was apparently a very large short in the system that it reacted to. It's a number of components, a distribution component we call a DCSU, the beta gimbal that the power goes through could have had a problem, although it's very unlikely, or what's called a sequential shunt unit. This is where all of the 82 channels of power that come through a solar array, they go through a sequential shunt unit, and then it's fed to the station as it needs it. And so that's a potential source of this short circuit. So what we're going to do is, after the SpaceX vehicle arrives, we're going to configure ourselves to a lower power by taking some of the batteries out of the system, so if the short's still there, we don't damage anything, and then we'll slowly start bringing these systems back online to see if we can isolate the short even if it's still there. So that's forward work for us. As soon as we figure out what the ORU is, then we'll know what to go do to repair it. And in any of those cases, that's an EVA to go do that. Now P6 has had a ammonia leak since it came to ISS. It's been very, very slow, and in fact, not too long ago, one of the last shuttle flights, we filled the system back up with a capability that's designed into the station to feed ammonia from the ammonia tanks out to any of the IEAs that may need ammonia. But in the mid-June time frame, the leak rate started to change. And you have to remember, you get thermal swings with these systems, and it's obviously a very slow leak, but over the last 2 or 3 months, the leak trend has started to increase. And so now it's at the point that we will potentially trip the limit on the cooling system, where it will shut off somewhere around the 1st of January 2013, so not far away. So now that's also one of the things we have to go look at. So we'll have to sort through those potential sources of the leak, or either the radiator itself, the coolant pump, or the lines within the system. We're actually very fortunate that this is on the P6 side, which has the early ammonia system, and there are options to go use some of those components to recover that system. But all of those, it's just a matter of trying to isolate the problem and fix it. And so part of what we're talking about now is when we might do an EVA and what we would go after. So we'll have to do some work on the 3A power system, and then decide what we would want to go do.
These two issues, depending on how it plays out. That's 2 EVAs, I'm guessing, and is that before the end of the year for both of them?
Well, we haven't made any decisions yet, so we're talking amongst ourselves as we like to do, and we tend to spend a lot of time on it. But we won't have a crew to do an EVA until the crew arrives in late December. And so we need to consider whether we need to do an EVA sooner rather than later, and if we decide we need to do it sooner, then we'll have to do it with Sunny and Aki. And with their departure date currently scheduled for the 12th of November, we're going to have to get on with it. So we are talking about that. If we think we can get along, or if the data tells us we can go much beyond January, then that would give us an option to just wait. We'll talk about that thoroughly here in the near future, and I think you'll see us kind of lean towards trying to get an EVA done before Sunny and Aki leave.
Okay, we'll take 2 more questions here, one here and one on the other side of the room before we go to the phone bridge, and then we'll come back for more questions. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm David Bankston with Dave Travel's web series, the social media team, and this is for Gwen. What did you learn? What was the most important thing you learned from the last mission?
This isn't really a learning, but it was a critical element that spaceflight continues to be very, very difficult. And even though we did make it successfully, there was a lot of hard work that went into that particular mission, especially if you were watching the proximity operations and actually getting to the capture box. So this is not easy. It continues to not be easy. Hopefully we get better and better at it as we go. But it's a good reminder that this is really hard.
Okay.
Art Harmon, SaveManSpace.com. Will you be this Dragon will be on the space station for what, 50 days or something, and then returning?
It's about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay. Will you be parking one at the space station for like 6 months to validate its use for manned missions?
We would have to talk to to Mike's team. Currently, there is no plan to have Dragon on station for 6 months. There are other ways to demonstrate life for Dragon. We could fly it independent of the International Space Station to demonstrate its life.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go to the phone bridge and take a question from Tariq Malik and then come back here. Tariq, are you there?
Yes, thank you. It's Tariq Malik from Space.com. And I had, I think, one question and a follow-up. My first question is for Mike. I know that this is a fairly full cargo trip to the station. I'm just wondering if there's anything special that you might have stored aboard for the crew when they open, something as a surprise. And I have one follow-up. Thanks.
Special for the crew. Well, we are flying things up for the entire team, and we talked about flying ice cream. Although I don't know if we ever got that on board. Did we ever get ice cream on board?
I don't know. We should get ice cream on board.
So I don't know the answer to that. When I just got back from a conference, and I haven't been able to check up to see, but we did talk about flying ice cream up because we had the freezers installed. But I don't know. We ended up doing that. But every flight we bring up a number of components. We bring up research, and we try to generally bring up what we call bonus food for the crew, and this is one of those flights will have that. And so that in and of itself usually are things that the crew prefers to have. So that will fly up, and I'll have to check on whether we got the ice cream on or not.
Thank you. And just as a follow-up for Gwen, I'm curious about the Falcon 9 for this mission, if there is an opportunity that you've taken for a secondary payload, either with a private partner or someone else, just to take advantage of any additional mesh you might have for this flight. Thanks.
We are flying a secondary on this mission. We're flying a prototype satellite for the Orbcomm OG2 upgrade to their constellation. It's a 165-kilo satellite. This prototype needs to operate on orbit before we go ahead and launch 8 to 12 of them on a dedicated Falcon 9 mission. That's the only secondary, though.
All right. We're back here at Kennedy.
Hi, this is Emily Carney with This Space Available blog with social media. My question is for Ms. Shotwell. Why for SpaceX is there an instantaneous launch window?
It's It's not exactly an instantaneous launch window, but it's pretty darn close. If we were to have to recycle, basically you have to launch into an orbit plane where you're going to have a conjunction with the ISS. Obviously you want to rendezvous with the ISS, and those windows tend to not be long. However, if we were to recycle, we could not recycle in time to get another mission off in that period of time. So that's why it ends up being an instantaneous launch window.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Every time you try to rendezvous with station, there's a precise point where you launch. It's the most efficient because you're launching right into the plane with the vehicle. So in the shuttle, we had additional performance, and so we got a whole 10 minutes worth of a window. But many of the vehicles, including the Soyuzes that launch the Progress and the crewed vehicles, have very, very small windows in order to conserve the performance and be able to send more to the station. So that's true in all vehicles, including this one.
On our static fire, we did hit T0 on the money, so looks good.
I'm Jim Howard, social media from Texas. I have just two quick questions. Are there any possible weather constraints associated with rolling your vehicle out and erecting it that could delay the launch? And the second one is, as a Texan, I have to ask, can you comment on the possible SpaceX facility in Deep South Texas, possibly around Brownsville?
Okay, so we could have the vehicle out on the pad during the rain, but we don't have to do that. So we're going to roll out. We're attempting to roll out, or we were going to at 6 p.m. this evening, depending on weather. We can roll out any time till, well, we have to be vertical by about 1 p.m. tomorrow. We've got late load cargo, hopefully the ice cream that Mike was referring to, that will load. That operation starts at 6 a.m. tomorrow. So we want to be horizontal and out of the hangar by 6 a.m. tomorrow, but we do have some flexibility. And as far as the launch site goes, we continue to look at a number of launch sites. We happen to be further ahead in South Texas than in any other location. So we're looking at a commercial site there in Brownsville area. We are looking at capability here, just north of the Cape. Puerto Rico has some very nice land as well. Georgia, potentially. I'd personally love to fly from the south point of Hawaii, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure we'll go there. But there's a number in play at this point. We're just further along with Texas.
Hi, Stacy Severn, NASA Social Media. This question is for Ms. Shotwell. Two-part question. Is there anything in particular you learned from COTS 2 that will change how you approach this flight? And were there any test maneuvers performed during COTS 2 that will be skipped during this flight's rendezvous and berthing process?
I'm going to answer your second one first, and I meant to mention that in my opening remarks. So if you recall, the last flight was both the C2 and the C3 planned COTS missions. So the C2 was a fly under the station, test the comms, test the relative GPS and the absolute GPS systems. We will not be doing those tests because we demonstrated we could do it. So this time we'll be driving right to station. So we'll be skipping that particular piece. And as far as the learning goes, there's no question. Every time we fly our hardware and our systems, we learn something. We learned we like to be able to crop our imaging. We learned that on the last flight, and that was one of the reasons why we were successful in actually maintaining our position in the berthing box. So I think we made that flexibility a little bit easier. On that. There are other few minor changes, but in general, these vehicles are largely the same from the last one. Mm-hmm.
Marcia?
Marcia Dunn, Associated Press, this time from Mike Saffredini. What's the latest on the debris up there? I think there's a conjunction alert. What's the latest that you're hearing on that? And if the station has to move, is that going to upset the SpaceX launch? And secondly, when do you think you might be making an announcement or a decision regarding the new one-year crew?
Let's see. Yes, there is a conjunction that has a time of closest approach for Monday at 12:02 GMT. I think it's going to go green, though. Last word I got before I came in here is it's looking promising that it's going to clear. So if we do have to do a maneuver, then we do need to talk to our SpaceX friends because the station won't be where they're expecting it to be. And so they would have to adjust themselves accordingly. So that would be a conversation we'd have together. So we've started the discussions. there's a number of burns you can do, different sizes, and so we would work that with them and then decide what worked best for both. But I think it'll turn green and we won't require a maneuver. Let's see. We've decided we're going to do the 1 year increment, and so we have let the multilateral crew operations panel go off and do their thing to select their crew. We need to get that done relatively quickly, and as you can imagine, there has been some discussions before this decision was made. I believe they're shooting for the middle of October to late October to give us a name. So we'll hear it here in the next couple of weeks probably.
Have you picked somebody and you just don't want to say yet? I don't. Are you got a short list? How?
I can tell you the options. The list of names was very short. Yes, that's the best way to say it. So we're pretty close.
Mark Ratterman with Talking Space. A question for Sam. In the idea of public support for ISS operations, and considering how the shuttle program things became so routine and so not necessarily exciting during parts of the program, do you see the space station cargo support that we're now starting to provide, do you see that becoming seen as routine, and how will public opinion affect the future?
Well, I can tell you firsthand that anything we do in space is not routine or easy. Every one of those shuttle missions was hard. Many things went wrong, some big things, some small things. Just recently on board the station, we had some surprises or some anomalies on our partner vehicles that caught us by surprise, and we had to work through them. Over the many years that SpaceX will be with us, I hope, there'll probably be anomalies that show up that we didn't expect, and we'll have to work through those. So I don't believe any of this will ever become routine.
Bill.
Bill Horowitz, CBS, with another one from Mike Staffordini, and I apologize again for this question because it's not a SpaceX question. It's looking for an update on Orbital and when you guys are going to be flying those guys for demo and then for.
If you look at the manifest, we still have them in December, but they have rolled out their first stage out to the pad, as you probably know. They have what they refer to as the 5,000 and 7,000 tests, which basically is you're load it up first and then offload it and see how everything goes, and then they'll load it up and do a hot fire. That will probably occur before the end of this month. And then they have a test flight that's, I don't know, it's probably, I'm guessing now, but probably into December, which doesn't go to ISS. So I'm not expecting the demo flight until, and we haven't decided with Orbital when we'd fly, but I'd be surprised if it'd be before late February, early March.
Okay, we're going to take one more here before we go back to the phone bridge. Go ahead.
My name is John Walker Jr., and I'm with GOG News and Countdown Today. My question is for Mr. Cabana or anybody who's on the panel. As SpaceX continues to have its success and its improvements, and everything just seemed to go the way it's supposed to, when do you think you may become human-rated to fly American astronauts into orbit to the space station? And the last question would be, what kind of ice cream would you be flying up?
Well, as far as human rating the vehicle goes, the commercial crew program is working in defining what those requirements are, and there's a document that lists what human rating is. And we're working very closely with all three of the Space Act participants in helping them reach a set of requirements that will allow us to rate the vehicle. Our goal is to have a U.S. capability to fly our crews to the space station no later than 2017. Some of them feel they can get there sooner than that. So we'll have to see how it all works out. But we're working very closely with them. We're defining what the requirements are. And when they prove they meet those requirements, then we'll be able to certify and move forward.
Okay, let's go to the phone bridge. I believe we have Hans Letz from the City News Service in Los Angeles on the line.
Yeah, kind of a parochial question, thanks. How much of the Dragon and the rocket itself was built here in Southern California?
the vast majority of the vehicle, whether by price or by mass. SpaceX is not an integrator of other people's hardware. Generally, we build the vast majority of that vehicle at SpaceX and at our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. So we build our tanks. We're now building our domes. We build our engines. We build many of the avionics are ours. We build the Dragon capsule, the Draco engines, the Merlin engines. So almost everything. Probably be easier to tell you what I don't build there.
Anything else, Hans?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Charles Parker, Brevard Times. Could you be a little more specific about the debris question? And obviously, you got two scenarios. Dragon is on its way tomorrow night, and you may have to move while it's en route, or launch on Monday after you've moved, potentially. Which is the better of the two scenarios? And would launch time change Monday night if you had to move Monday during the day?
No, I would suspect that we'll just adjust our orbit, and it may take SpaceX a little longer to get there. We also can adjust orbits one way and adjust back. I mean, there's a number of things we'll do. We're not going to, I couldn't imagine a scenario where we ask them not to launch. So this is not going to be a major move of the station. It'll move a bit, so they'll have to phase a little bit to catch us if we don't come back. I don't like to do retrograde burns, though, so we'll probably ask them to catch us, but that's what we'll work together.
Monday night launch would stay the same time if it was Monday night.
No, we're going to launch Sunday. That's my intention. I don't know what their plan is, but my plan is for them to launch on Sunday. Be the good Lord willing, and then they'll just adjust while they're flying if we have to do the maneuver. But we can do very, very small maneuvers of ISS, and generally that's enough to clear a conjunction. So I don't see this being a big problem.
Mark Ratterman with Talking Space. Question for Bob Cabana. How are things working out budget-wise for the changes that are in work here at Kennedy with the changes to the infrastructure? How's the support going for that versus what you expected when this started?
Well, the budget's working out very well for what we got. We're moving forward, and we have to see. Of course, we're in a continuing resolution right now, so we're spending what we were spending before the end of the fiscal year. I hope that as we move forward, we'll get a budget that is close to what was promised, and we'll continue on. But as far as the work that's getting done, we're getting it all done with what we've been given so far, and I'm confident we'll continue with that. That's not to say there aren't budget challenges. These are very tough fiscal times, and we have to ensure that the money that we are given we use very wisely, that we deliver on what we said we're going to do on time, within budget, with a quality product, and so far we've been able to do that. But just running the center from a point of view of things that have to happen, to maintain facilities and pay salaries and stuff, we're essentially flat, which means our budget's decreasing because there's still inflation, salaries still go up, there's escalation in contracts, so it means that we can't do everything that we've done in the past, and we're tightening our belts to make sure that we can still do what needs to get done.
Stuart Money, Interspace.net, and my question is for Mike. Will NASA be returning on this mission or any future ones components or experiments from the Russian segment of the station?
In fact, on this flight, we're bringing home what they refer to as an S&T. It's a power converter so that the U.S. can provide power to the Russian segment. It recently failed on orbit, and so we're going to bring that home. And so we have an arrangement with all of the partners that if they would like to return something, that well, there's a value that we have for it, and we barter it appropriately. But yes, I expect to be bringing all of the partners' stuff home as their need arises, and we can afford to carry it.
My name is right here, Ivan Moreno. It's for you, SpaceX. If everything goes all right and you have success in all your contracts with NASA, do you think you have a plans on the future that you can do your own launches, your own research, completely, being independent out of NASA, like do it on your own, like maybe next 20, 30 years?
You know, we on our own do some technology development. I don't see us doing any fundamental scientific research. That's something that's best done, I think, in partnership.
Space, like probably get to the moon or go to Mars or do your own space work out of NASA?
Those are very ambitious projects, and we really want to be a part of them. Certainly going to Mars, we've been very public about that. I think it would be very difficult for any organization to do a mission like that on their own. So we hope to be part of the partnership that does eventually go do that.
Jonathan Pearson, social media, Los Angeles, California. I'm aware that SpaceX that the Dragon was initially designed to carry personnel, and what do you see as far as bringing personnel to the space station? It's also been rumored that celebrity opera singer Sarah Brightman has paid for a spot on one of Russians' flights. Now, is that something that NASA or SpaceX will be looking into as far as space tourism?
So we did design Dragon from the beginning to facilitate human access to space in addition to cargo. That doesn't mean it's capable at this moment. It's mean that we've designed the hooks that, as we understood them, and we're working on the remaining pieces. The largest development that we have left on Dragon to make it crew rateable as far as bringing folks up during the ascent period is having a launch escape system, a safety system for the astronauts in case you have a really bad day with the launch vehicle. That's the largest development. There's still some crew interface work we have to do, spacesuit work, et cetera. So we are working on enhancing Dragon to be able to carry crew. There's the market for crew outside of NASA is very ill-defined. I think there's lots of folks that want to go. Bob Bigelow has some very interesting ideas on uses of crew in space. As far as tourism, it's not a focus for us. I'm thrilled to hear anybody actually paying a ticket to go to space. I think I think it's good for the industry. It's not a focus for SpaceX right now.
Hi, John Walker with Junior for GOG News and Countdown today. My question is again about Dragon. In regard to people flying in space, when it becomes rated, how many astronauts will be able to fly aboard the spacecraft? And my earlier question in regard to your future astronauts, we still want to know what type of ice cream flavors you're going to fly up.
You want to take the ice cream one first?
I don't even know if we're flying ice cream. This is one of those things that usually I remember to make sure I check on before I walk in here, and I mistakenly did not do that. So, since I don't know if we're flying ice cream, I couldn't tell you what the flavors are.
But having been on a flight that had an empty freezer on it going up into space, we did fill it, and it's really nice. So if you can do it, you ought to do it.
I know. We have done it.
Little pressure.
I'll tell the guys you were rooting for him.
Got to take care of Sonny.
Absolutely.
Do we have any other questions? One in the back there.
Ronnie Williams, social media. This is for Ms. Shotwell. Just ballpark, if you had to say, give an approximate time when your capsule would be crew rated, how far away do you think you are in terms of months, years?
We think we'll be flying crew in about 3 years, or we'll be ready to fly crew. Let's be careful. Ready to fly crew in about 3 years. And by the way, I didn't answer your question because of the ice cream. 7. Dragon was designed for 7 crew members.
All right, thank you all very much for coming. We're going to call this an evening and let everybody get out and get some rest. NASA television coverage of the SpaceX Commercial Resupply Services 1 mission begins at 7 p.m. tomorrow. Liftoff is 8:35 p.m., and in between now and then, you can keep up with the status of the flight at www.nasa.gov/station. Thank you once again.